My wife's friends convinced her to fake an affair to test me, so I served her divorce papers instead. So, my wife Sarah and I have been married for 8 years, and yeah, things have been pretty good. Not like movie perfect or anything, but solid. We both juggle full-time jobs, so we've got our routines down, you know? We try to sneak in a date night once a month, mostly when we're not worn out from work. I thought we were cruising along fine, not like a honeymoon kind of fine, but more like a comfortable, we're in this together kind of fine where you don't need to be glued to each other all the time. But then, out of nowhere, Sarah starts chatting with her divorced buddies, and they start filling her head with all this crazy talk about me not being romantic or attentive enough. They were suggesting she should make me fight for her or some wild idea like that. I had no clue this was happening, and it hit me hard because, while I'm over here stressing out thinking Sarah might be cheating, she's secretly cooking up this insane plan with her friends who are just, well, bitter about their own marriages. It all started about 6 weeks ago when Sarah changed up her game, like big time. Suddenly, she's pulling late nights at work and coming home looking all guilty and weird, yet excited. When I'd try to ask about her day, she dodged the questions and changed the subject. She started putting more effort into her look for work too, getting all dressed up, spending extra time getting ready, and wearing perfume when she never used to bother with it before. I initially thought she might be planning something sweet for our anniversary, which was coming up in a few months. But then, she starts getting texts at all hours, and she'd snatch up her phone real quick to check it, flipping it face down like she's hiding something. I'd ask who's messaging her, and she'd just say it's work or her sister, but she'd get all flustered and defensive. Then, one night, she rolls in around midnight claiming she was out with the girls, but she smelled like men's cologne and her lipstick was smudged. Her excuse was that she must have hugged someone goodbye, but come on, she couldn't even look me in the eye when she said it. At this point, I knew something was up, so I started keeping my eyes open. She was taking phone calls in another room, hanging up as I walked in, doing laundry more often in this weird, secretive way, like she didn't want me to see certain clothes. She started showering as soon as she got home, which was a new thing. There was also this new guy, Jake, from her office that she kept mentioning. She'd talk about how funny he was, how he helped with some project, and you could tell she was interested because of all the details she knew about him, his motorcycle, recent divorce, rock climbing. It didn't sit right with me because that's not the kind of stuff you usually know about just any coworker. I tried bringing up how distant she seemed, but she dismissed it, saying I was paranoid and she was just stressed and needed space. But giving her space just seemed to make things worse. Then the tipping point came 2 weeks ago. She said she was going out to dinner with her sister, but I saw her sister at the grocery store, and she looked super confused when I mentioned the dinner. That's when I knew for sure something fishy was happening, probably with Jake. When she got home, I confronted her, straight up asked if she was cheating. She got really upset, crying, saying she loved me and would never do that. But she still couldn't explain where she'd been or why she lied about being with her sister. That's a huge red flag when someone can't give you a straight answer about something that should be simple. I didn't sleep at all that night. My head was spinning with all the signs, all the lies, all the ways she had me feeling like a fool. It was eating me up inside, and I realized I couldn't keep living in this limbo, wondering every day if Sarah was being faithful. I knew I had to get to the bottom of things or just end it all because this wasn't living. I started thinking about hiring a private investigator, needed proof before making any big moves. I didn't actually go through with it, but I was also checking out divorce lawyers online, bracing for the worst case scenario where I'd have to start over because she was with some motorcycle riding rock climber. Then last Tuesday, everything blew up in my face in the worst way. Sarah's friend Lisa called me, hammered and rambling about how proud she was of Sarah for taking their advice and making me jealous, saying that it was working because I was finally paying attention to Sarah. I was like, what the heck are you talking about? And that's when it all came out. Turns out Sarah and her divorced friends, Lisa, Monica, and Jennifer, had cooked up this whole fake affair scheme to get me to notice her more. So, there I was, trying to be more attentive and romantic, and meanwhile, Sarah's pals had convinced her that the way to make a guy appreciate what he has is to make him think he might lose it. I mean, seriously, that's the most twisted logic I've ever come across. Lisa spilled the beans that they helped Sarah cook up this whole scenario with Jake, who is an actual coworker, but she barely knows him outside of basic work stuff. They coached her on how to act all sneaky to make me think something was up. They thought it was hilarious that their plan was working, turning me into this jealous husband fighting for his marriage. After hearing this from Lisa, I just sat there for what felt like forever, feeling every emotion possible. First, I was relieved she wasn't really cheating. Then I was just baffled, like, who does this to their partner? Then, I hit peak anger because I realized Sarah had been purposely putting me through hell for weeks. When Sarah got home, I told her Lisa let the cat out of the bag. She went white as a ghost, started crying and apologizing, saying it was just a silly joke gone too far, and she was going to come clean soon. But I was fuming. I told her that pretending to cheat is not a joke, it's emotional abuse. She kept explaining how her friends convinced her I was taking her for granted, and she just wanted more attention from me. And yeah, I'd been more attentive because I thought I was losing her, which just made me madder. I told her how messed up and manipulative she was for making me believe she was cheating, causing me sleepless nights and misery. But she kept saying sorry, claiming it was a mistake. What really gets me, and what no one seems to get, is this wasn't just a little mistake or a bad joke. This was a deliberate plan to mess with my head, and it worked. Sarah watched me stew in suspicion, knowing full well why. Her friends found this whole thing amusing, probably laughing at my expense. And Sarah went right along with it. I said I needed time to think, but really, I knew I had to get out of there. I packed my stuff and crashed at my brother's place, pondering if I could ever trust her again. I mean, if she could lie to my face for weeks, what else could she do? My family and friends think I'm blowing this out of proportion and should forgive her, but they don't understand the emotional toll of thinking your partner is cheating. I was imagining all the worst-case scenarios, thinking my marriage was a lie, and planning for a future without her. All that pain was just because of her little plan. Luckily, the apartment lease was in Sarah's name, so I had to leave. 4 days at my brother's place, and I'd made up my mind. I saw a divorce lawyer, and even he was shocked by the story. He said emotional abuse is a legit reason for divorce and that Sarah's actions showed zero respect for me or our marriage. So, I went back and told Sarah I'd filed for divorce. Wow, things really hit the fan when she just lost it, screaming, crying, and begging me not to leave. She promised she'd do anything to make it up to me and swore she'd ignore her friends and had learned her lesson. But honestly, I told her she should have already known that treating your partner poorly for laughs is a no-go. We're adults, for crying out loud. Anyway, she roped in both our parents to try to change my mind. She kept saying that divorce was over the top and suggested counseling, but I'm just not interested. I can't be with someone who thinks it's cool to mess with my emotions and then acts like I'm overreacting when I push back. Her friends, Lisa and Monica, even called to say I was being too sensitive and it was just a harmless prank. Seriously? I told them if they think that kind of stuff is harmless, they're more twisted than I thought, and maybe they tanked my marriage because they're unhappy in their own relationships. Lisa tried to defend their actions by saying Sarah had been venting about me not being romantic enough. I pointed out that if Sarah had issues, she should have talked to me, not plotted with her frustrated friends. What really gets me is Sarah doesn't seem to get why it was so wrong. She keeps insisting she didn't cheat for real, like that makes it okay. But the emotional toll was just as bad, if not worse. I've been crashing at my brother's for a couple of weeks and Sarah's been texting constantly, wanting to talk things over and suggesting we go to marriage counseling. But how can I trust her again when I'm worried she might pull something like this if her friends egg her on? Everyone's asking if I want to throw away 8 years of marriage over this, but it's not just one screw-up. It was scheming and deceit over weeks. It hurts to realize she'd put me through such agony just to feel she has my attention. I filed for divorce and when she found out, she was a wreck, saying she'd cut ties with her friends and do anything to regain my trust. But the real problem is she thought their twisted ideas were okay in the first place. Some folks think I'm overreacting, but those weeks of stress, not being able to eat or sleep, weigh heavy on my mind. Maybe if she'd fessed up early on, we could have moved past it. But she dragged it on, and Lisa spilling the beans when drunk tells me all I need to know about Sarah's character. So, that's where I'm at, going through with the divorce even if people think I'm nuts for doing it over a harmless prank. But it wasn't harmless, and I don't want a lifetime of wondering what other tests she might throw my way. Update, whoa. I didn't expect this story to blow up, but seeing that others get why this is a big deal is both validating and overwhelming. Folks wanted more details, so here goes. Sarah's crew includes Lisa, who got divorced after her husband cheated, Monica, who's been twice divorced and is dating a guy she often complains about, and Jennifer, who just finalized her divorce. They get together weekly for wine night, which is really just a gripe session about men. I originally thought it was harmless, even encouraged Sarah to go, thinking friends are important. Little did I know, they were bad-mouthing me the whole time, saying I was taking the relationship for granted. So, here's the deal. I finally figured out that Sarah felt like I wasn't appreciating her enough, and she decided to shake things up. Basically, she went all out during this 6-week period to stir the pot. It was way more intense than I initially thought. She started hitting the gym more, buying new outfits, and when I told her she looked great, she'd just get all mysterious, saying she just wanted to feel good about herself. That got me worrying she was dressing up for someone else. Then she became super critical of me out of nowhere, like she'd point out my work clothes, suggest I needed a new haircut, or question why I'd stopped planning surprise dates. I thought she was having some midlife crisis, but in reality, this was all part of a script her buddies gave her to mess with my head and make me feel like crap. Those phone calls and texts she was getting? Totally fake. Her friends, Lisa and Monica, would text or call her randomly just so she could act all shady. They even did a deep dive on some dude named Jake from her office, learning about his motorcycle and hobbies, so she had all these realistic details to drop in conversation. The real kicker? Sarah said they had this whole timeline for how this scheme would play out, with different stages where she'd ramp up the sneaky behavior to make me more jealous and desperate. Phase 1 was just her being distant and secretive. Phase 2 was the fake texts and late work nights. Phase 3 was supposed to involve her going out and coming home looking like she'd been with someone else. And Phase 4? Disappearing for whole nights, making me think she was cheating for real. Thankfully, Lisa got drunk and spilled the beans before it hit those last phases because I was barely holding it together as it was. They even took pictures and videos of this whole ordeal, documenting how stressed I got and cracking up over my efforts to win Sarah back. I mean, I was bringing her flowers and setting up date nights, trying to save our marriage, and they found it amusing. Sarah didn't just go along with it, she was into it, reporting back on how I was reacting to each lie. People have asked if Sarah enjoyed this whole game, and honestly, she seemed to love the power trip. She was more alive and excited than I'd seen in a long time, and I thought she was falling for someone else. Turns out, it was the thrill of messing with my head. She'd come home with this secretive smile, watching me struggle to figure out what was up with her. She'd give me just enough hints to keep me anxious but not enough to calm me down. Sometimes, I'd catch her looking almost entertained by how stressed I was. I also found out her friends coached her on how to mess with my mind. When I caught her in a lie about being with her sister, they told her to flip it on me, make me feel guilty and paranoid, which is exactly what she did. It was a full-on psychological attack, making me doubt myself and feel like the problem. The more I dig into what happened, the angrier I get, and I'm sure I did the right thing by filing for divorce. This wasn't just a prank gone wrong, it was a deliberate attempt to emotionally mess with me for fun. Sarah's been leaving voicemails, begging me to rethink things, and promising to ditch those friends. But the damage is done, and there's no way back from this betrayal. Even her family is asking me to give her another chance, saying everyone makes mistakes, but this wasn't a mistake. It was a choice, over and over, for weeks. Her sister called me cruel for not talking things out with Sarah, but I told her what's really cruel is watching someone you claim to love suffer and feeling miserable on purpose. The divorce is moving forward, and every day I feel more at peace with it. I realize now the Sarah I thought I married isn't real. The real Sarah is someone who thinks it's okay to toy with the person she supposedly loves. Some people have asked if. So, I'm freaking out a bit thinking I might be messing up big time and that this is something I'll regret later. But, for real, I finally feel like I'm seeing everything clearly after weeks of confusion. What I see is that I deserve way better than someone who'd pull this kind of stunt on me. Okay, update time. Things have gotten way crazier since I last checked in. I honestly don't know whether to laugh or scream right now. But I've got to fill everyone in because things have gotten even more ridiculous. So, Sarah apparently thought that begging and crying weren't doing the trick, so now she's going with a different story. Now she's saying the whole fake affair was my fault because I wasn't giving her enough attention. According to her, she felt neglected and unappreciated in our marriage. She texted me this huge message yesterday saying she'd been dropping hints for more romance for months and I just ignored her. So, she felt like she had to do something drastic to get my attention. She seriously said, "You forced me to fake an affair," which is hands down the wildest thing I've ever heard. She's trying to claim this wasn't a prank but a real attempt to get my attention since I missed all her hints. And she genuinely believes she was right because I wasn't meeting her emotional needs. I showed the text to my lawyer, and he just shook his head, saying he's never seen anyone dig themselves into such a deep hole. Instead of just owning up to a mistake and asking for forgiveness, she's out here justifying her actions and blaming me. But wait, it gets crazier. Apparently, Sarah's been talking to her friends and coworkers about all this. She's been telling folks that I'm divorcing her because she tried to spice things up in our marriage, making me out to be a jealous and controlling guy for not appreciating her efforts. I found out because my buddy Dave works with Sarah and pulled me aside, asking what was up because everyone at her office thinks I'm losing it over some harmless flirting. Dave knows me well and figured that story was off, so he asked for the real scoop. When I filled him in, he was stunned. Sarah had been saying it was just playful teasing, not some mind game. Now I'm stuck dealing with her twisting the story, making me look like the bad guy whenever she can. I'm sure her divorced friends are backing her up since they helped cook up this ridiculous plan. To protect myself from this narrative she's spinning, I saved all her voicemails where she's crying, apologizing, and admitting it was all fake. I might need those as proof in the future. Speaking of her friends, Lisa seems to have realized how badly they screwed up. She called me trying to do damage control, saying it wasn't that big a deal and I should give Sarah another shot. But she ended up making it worse by spilling even more details about how premeditated all this was. Turns out, they planned this for 3 months, researching ways to make guys jealous and thinking the fake affair would be the best way to get me to step up. They were even documenting everything in their group chat, celebrating every time their plan made me anxious. They called this whole mess Project Wake Up Call, which makes me sick thinking about it. Here's what really ticked me off. Lisa said they were disappointed it took me so long to confront Sarah because they expected me to get jealous way sooner. They started thinking maybe I didn't care enough to fight for her. So, not only did they mess with me for 6 weeks, but they also criticized how I reacted, like I was failing some kind of test. Lisa also mentioned Monica suggested pushing it even further by having Sarah fake a date with some guy, just to see how far they could push me before I snapped. Thankfully, they thought that was too risky. But the fact they even considered it shows they have zero boundaries or decency. I also found out Sarah's parents were kinda in the dark. She asked them for advice on making me more romantic and told them she was just planning surprises. They had no idea she was actually planning this whole fake affair drama. Oh, wow. So, get this, when I decided on divorce, Sarah's parents flipped out. They were super shocked and told her what she did was totally out of line. But they're also begging me to give her another shot because they don't want their daughter's marriage crashing over this mess. Her dad even called me up yesterday. He said he gets why I'm mad but thinks divorce is a bit much, claiming Sarah learned her lesson. I told him, hey, what she did was extreme, so my reaction matches what she did. I also mentioned that if anyone else had pulled this stunt on me, making me think my wife was cheating just for kicks, they'd expect me to press charges. Just because it's his daughter doesn't make it less twisted. He didn't have much to say to that, and I think he's starting to see this isn't just a small fight that can be patched up with an apology and counseling. The divorce is moving along, and my lawyer says it should wrap up quickly since there aren't any kids or complicated finances to deal with. Honestly, I just want it done so I can start fresh and not deal with Sarah spinning the story. I'm planning to move to a different part of town post-divorce. I'd rather not bump into Sarah or her friends at places like the grocery store or the gym, and a new neighborhood might actually help me move on from this whole mess. People keep asking if I'm missing Sarah or second-guessing the divorce. Honestly, I miss the Sarah I thought I knew, not who she turned out to be. I'm relieved to know what she's capable of before kids or a house came into play. I keep thinking if Lisa hadn't gotten drunk and spilled the beans, how long would Sarah have let me suffer thinking she was cheating? The woman I thought I married would have never been able to see me in pain without fessing up. But the real Sarah watched me lose weight, sleep, and stay in constant anxiety. Not only did she not feel bad, she and her friends were getting a kick out of their plan working. That's not someone I want to be with, or someone I can trust. And I'm done feeling bad for looking out for myself when she clearly wasn't. Just when I thought I was out of stuff to update on, something so wild happened that I gotta share. We're almost done with the divorce, supposed to finalize everything next week. I thought the drama was dying down, except for Sarah's random attempts to change my mind. But apparently, her friends had one last shot at fixing the disaster they caused. Monica called and wanted to meet up about Sarah, to try and work something out. Against my better judgment, I agreed, curious to hear what she had to say. So we met up for coffee, and Monica starts off apologizing for her part in the fake affair ordeal, admitting they went too far. I thought she might own up to things. Instead, she drops this bombshell confession that I couldn't help but laugh at. Monica claimed the whole fake affair plan was born from Sarah's fear I was cheating. According to Monica, Sarah thought I might be having an affair because I'd been working late, changed my phone's password, and started hitting the gym more. She'd asked her friends for advice, and they cooked up the fake affair plan to test my faithfulness. If I was cheating too, I wouldn't care if Sarah was supposedly cheating, but if I was loyal, I'd get jealous and fight for the marriage. I just stared at her because it was such obvious nonsense. I asked why Sarah never mentioned being suspicious during all our divorce talks, or when she was apologizing and begging me back. Monica got flustered, said Sarah was embarrassed to bring it up without proof. But here's the thing, I know this is complete nonsense. Sarah had no reason to be suspicious. I've never cheated on anyone, ever. Wow, where do I even start? Monica was trying to claim that the stuff she called red flags in our marriage were just everyday things any married person deals with. Like, yeah, I sometimes work late because of deadlines, changed my phone password for better security on my new phone, and started hitting the gym more because my doctor recommended it after a checkup. None of that screams cheater, right? And Sarah, my wife, never seemed stressed about any of this. She didn't question my late hours, my phone changes, or my new workout routine. So it's pretty obvious Monica's story was just her way of covering up what they did. I flat out told Monica her story was bogus and sounded like she was trying to flip the narrative to make Sarah seem like the victim instead of the one in the wrong. Monica got all defensive, saying I was being unreasonable and that Sarah truly was worried about our marriage. She even claimed that their silly fake affair stunt made me more loving and that our marriage could have been stronger if I hadn't freaked out and filed for divorce. I told her straight up, things would have been better if Sarah had just talked to me instead of plotting with her spiteful friends to mess with my head. The idea that lying and manipulation seemed better to them than just talking honestly said everything I needed to know about Sarah and her crew. I stood up and told Monica to forget my number and tell the rest to do the same. I said the only person I wanted to hear from was my lawyer, and their games just convinced me more that I made the right choice. I walked out, leaving Monica sitting there, completely shocked. I got in my car and drove, trying to make sense of the nonsense they were spinning. Their excuses went from it was a harmless prank to you forced her to do it to now we were just testing you. It was like watching a masterclass in dodging responsibility. It was almost impressive how far they'd go to stay in their bubble of lies. But I've had enough of being their punchline. The joke's on them, I'm free now. Update, so, it's finally over. After 8 months of the most ridiculous, drawn-out crap imaginable, the divorce is done. 8 months. And I swear, Sarah and her genius pals found new ways to mess with my head every single day. But I'm through it now, and honestly, I'm just numb. Last time I updated, Monica was trying to sell me that garbage about loyalty tests. I thought that was peak insanity, but oh, how wrong I was. In the following months, Sarah switched it up by playing the victim and then having her lawyer send these cold, business-like emails, as if she wasn't the same person leaving me sobbing voicemails just weeks before. One day she's telling friends I abandoned her in her darkest hour, the next her lawyer is demanding we sort out some stupid fondue pot from our wedding gifts. Her parents kept trying to mediate, which was basically them asking me to forget the whole thing because marriage is tough. I had to tell her dad straight up, yeah, marriage is hard, but what Sarah did wasn't marriage, it was a twisted game, and I'm done playing. I think he finally got it because they backed off. And get this, for the final mediation session, Sarah brought Jennifer for support, Jennifer, one of the masterminds behind their little plan. She sat there with this smirk like she was some kind of relationship guru, and I just told my lawyer I wouldn't say a thing with her in the room. The mediator made her leave. Sarah acted like I'd done something horrible by refusing to let someone who played mind games with me sit in and divvy up our stuff. You can't make this stuff up. The day the papers were officially signed off was bizarre. I got the email from my lawyer, and that was it. I'm still crashing at my brother's place, looking for my own apartment. I needed time away from the house we shared. I know ditching that mess was the right move, without a doubt, but accepting this new chapter of my life is challenging. Divorced at 36 because my wife and her friends thought emotional abuse was a cute marriage booster. It's the craziest thing I've ever gone through, but I'm glad it's finally done. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. And hit the notification bell to stay updated with more crazy real life stories happening around you.